Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on getting more from your customer and vendor screening program. My name is Anu Sood, and I'm the Director of Marketing at Alessa. In today's webinar, we're going to discuss some of the latest enhancements to the sanction screening module in Alessa. Now, as most of you know, failure to have an effective screening program for financial institutions can have a disastrous effect. Just this year, Standard Chartered agreed to pay $1.1 billion to U.S. and British authorities for conducting illegal financial transactions that violated sanctions against Iran and other countries. Now, one of the charges was that the bank failed to get sufficient information about a customer exporting a product with potential military applications. Now, it's not just customers that organizations have to worry about. As recently described by legal firm Baker McKenzie, suppliers and vendors present many of the same risks as customers under U.S. sanctions. Now, failure to properly screen suppliers and vendors could lead to repeated dealings with a specially designated national, or SDN, for example. So given the comprehensive prohibitions targeting SDNs, a U.S. company would likely face significant liability if it had obtained goods or services from an SDN. So how can organizations protect themselves? As anyone in compliance knows, it's not just important to have policies in place. You need to have proper procedures, information technology processes, and reviews to ensure that your organization is not exposed. In today's webinar, Andrew Simpson, Chief Operating Officer at Alessa, and Stephen Adama, one of Alessa's analytics consultant, will walk you through how the solution can help you work through the screening process more quickly, and thereby reducing risks and the overall cost of compliance. So with that in mind, I will hand over the controls to Andrew. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anu. Today, I'd like to thank you guys for joining. A few things that we're going to go through. We're going to talk about the themes around the 5.5 release. We more than likely have a mix of on-premises and hosted customers on the webinar today. So what we're going to do is to go through a few features and capabilities that some of our cloud-hosted customers may be familiar with, but our on-premises customers are yet to be deployed on their site. So if you are seeing some things that you're already using in the application, just bear with us while we just make sure that everyone that's participating in the webinar is properly addressed and covered. All right, so we're going to go through the themes. We're going to go through what's new, and not just what's new, but why. And the biggest part of the presentation today is we're going to go through the demos. So I will do the part going through what is new in sanction screening, the updates that we have made, and how is that going to be adding value to you, our customers. And secondly, Stephen, who worked with us on a new set of dashboards to show you today, is going to go through that. And Stephen today is going to go a little bit further than what we did on Tuesday. He is going to just start with data from scratch and to show you how you can even do analytics against that data and visually. And then if you have a visualization that you really like, how you can check that in and make that appear on your dashboards in Alessa. We'll take questions and at any point during the presentation, and we'll try to answer them at the end or during the presentation. So there are two main themes around the version 5.5 release of Alessa. One is making things easier, and the second thing is providing you with insights. When I say make it easier, I'm thinking, how do you make it easier for me to identify that this is a high-risk entity that I'm screening or I'm looking at? And how do you make the triaging process simpler? So how we can have multiple persons working on an alert at the same time and then making decisions about what needs to happen. Then if you're doing that, let's say that you searched for Andrew Simpson and you got like 5 or 6 potential hits. How do you easily dismiss or confirm which one of the persons is really the Andrew Simpson? And making sure that we provide all the automated documentation and audit trails for that. The insights part is one of the things that customers have been really pushing for us to give greater capabilities there, and we're happy to say that's a big part of the release for 5.5. It's providing you with dashboards and visualizations, reports, scorecards, and everything around giving you the ability to answer key questions. How are my teams performing? You know, what's really going on with my overall sanctions screening or my screening process? And what's the true or maybe hidden risks that exist within my customer base or my vendors or suppliers. So making it easy, some of you would may have been using version 4 or even version 5.0 or 5.1, and you'd be familiar with this screen that you're looking at here, which is what we normally present when we have a sanction set. Very simple way that we present the world check data back on the screen. However, in version 5 and this release, we took it to a completely different level. As you can see, all the potential hits will be shown on the left-hand side, and you have to toggle between what is a prospect and what you've dismissed, and you have the ability to confirm and unconfirm your actions. Then we break out all of these into separate tabs as well. So like on the profile, we've listed everything about the person, their locations, their nationality, and so on. And there are a few examples that I'm going to show you in the actual demo that will show you like how we are going through and using like even the world check identifiers and using that to get additional information from external sites. One of the really cool things that we have done too is to visualize all the connections and allow you to navigate and drill through all the connections related to a person. It's really nice. Like, we've gotten tremendous response on this from customers that have started using this feature already. And you have the breadcrumbs here, so you can see how you're navigating through all the different persons and where you are at in your process. The map has been a big hit as well, where you can now see for this person, these are all the locations that this person have been reported, either to be doing business or living, or they're a resident or they're a citizen. So you can see for this person, you know, it's primarily around the Texas area, but then they're in the Caribbean, and then they're in the Switzerland. So then you can use that to narrow down your searches in terms of what you're looking for. So some of you may have used some of our world check data before, and you would have seen that, you know, this was just like a blob of text. What we've done is to take it and put it in a way that is really highly interpretable and just allowing you to see all the timeline of events that's going on for this profile. So overall, what's new? Easier to triage. So we've given you all the maps, the visual connections, and so on. I'm going to show you what the quick searches look like. That is very useful as well to narrow down who is it that you want to look at and in what priority or in what sequence. The evidence in an audit trail, we're now allowing you to print profiles as well. So you can just click on a particular profile and just say, hey, I want to print it, and it prints beautifully. In terms of the confirm and the dismiss that you saw in the previous slide, we're also allowing you to configure the application in such a way that you can force the user to say, what's my reason for dismissing this prospect? Not just dismiss it, but what's the reason driving that? The accuracy of matches we've introduced since version 5.5.1 or 5.5.0, we've introduced a new AI-driven algorithm. That's really quite powerful. And we have also introduced the ability to just narrow down what you're searching for, from the categories to the different lists that you want to search on. We've introduced all of those as well. Our hosted customers, yeah, they are quite aware that we do cloud hosting, but for some of our on-premises customers, this is something that would be new to you, that we're doing a lot of cloud hosting. Some of you have already contacted us, and we've started migrating some on-premises customers into the cloud. Other things that we have done too, and I'm going to show you this in the demo. I'm a Google Translate browser up and running, but I'm going to show you that I can actually search for someone in Russian or Chinese or whatever, or Arabic, and still find that person, although in the world check database they're only listed there in English. We can also do vessel searches, and this one is really cool because I'm going to show you where we can use one of the links that's provided in the data to physically to locate where the vessel is as of today. So those are some of the things that we're going to walk through. And you would have already received your What's New document. So this is really me just pulling out a few of the things that I'm most excited about. So the other thing that we decided to do is to provide you with insights. You would have been on the Tuesdays. If you've been on the Tuesdays webinar, I'm going to repeat a few things here, but I'm going to go through it very quickly. There's another document available that we're probably going to share with the audience about how the new Alessa visualizations are going to work. So we're providing you with the ability to create dashboards, reports, and scorecards within your browser. This is not a separate tool that you install on your laptop or anything. Right in the browser, you're going to be able to do that. This is also allowing you to build data cubes and get access to different data. You can do data preparations in terms of your ETL processes and building different metric sets. So those are things that is now available in the application. In terms of another thing that we've decided to do is to remain true to our promise to customers to remain and always be an open platform. So some of you may know, we even support Crystal reports. You can plug Crystal reports into Alessa. You can plug SQL reporting services reports into Alessa. So what we've done is that we've opened up an opportunity for customers to inject their Power BI visualizations and dashboards into Alessa as well. So that's a new feature that we've added as well. There are two types of users that you'll be talking about primarily. One is a standard user. A standard user can create their dashboards, they can consume their dashboards and scorecards and everything. So this is a relatively powerful user, and 99% of the time, these are the type of licenses that you will use in Alessa. Outside of that, there's what you call a power user. A power user can do a little bit more. They can create the different data sources, and they can prepare and consume data sources that are not just completely defined and restricted. So this is just another level up, but I think for your most purposes, I think the standard user should be just fine. On the licensing, you are not paying any additional amount, any additional monies to us for the Alessa visualizations. This is just part of your standard support and subscription fee. With that, you get one standard concurrent user. If you want to get more licenses than that, just let us know and we'll work out what that pricing is going to be. In our own testing, we've found that a single concurrent user will easily support 5 Alessa users that are regularly consuming dashboards. If they're just consuming dashboards intermittently, the ratio is even higher than that. All right. So Stephen is on the call today. We've also had Yidi that's working with us and a few other people. And we will be conducting free online sessions to all our users for them to get some training. We record those training sessions. We can get persons really using this feature as best possible. Where I am now is that I'm actually going to switch and start going through the demos a little bit so that you can see where we are with this. Let me get my screen up here. Since this webinar is really intended for our existing users, you are all familiar with this screen. This is your screen that you're working in all the time. And let me talk about some of the things that we have done. Right on the grid, you'll see some big changes. One is that we have introduced the different alert types. So from the grid itself, you can identify, do I have any searches or any screening alerts that potentially has a sanctions hit? And this one is saying no. But you can get sanctions, PEPs. You can see how many potential PEPs are in each of these screens: regulatory enforcement, law enforcement, and others. So these are the key categories. And what customers tend to do is that they want to make sure that they're looking at any potential alert, any alert that potentially involves a sanctioned person. They tend to want to do that first. right? Then another thing that we're doing here is that we're going through to look at if there's a confirmed hit. So if the hit has been confirmed, you can also see it here. What is the source? Is it on demand? Is it real time? Is it batch? And how many prospects exist? How many have we dismissed? And so on. So we have added a lot more information to the grid that allows you to prioritize your work. And so let's start with this. Let's look at Alan Stanford, which is anybody that has sat through a demo with me know this is my go-to person. And the screen looks a little bit different if you have been using like an older version of the application. You'll see that we're doing a few things. We're telling you the first time that we ever screened the person and when was the last time that we've done a screening for that person. So you can know what is really going on here. You see the person's name and their entity type and what's the source, right? So you've seen all of that. And then here you have the prospects. And if we've dismissed anyone, you can see all the persons that we have dismissed. And you can see the match strength right there. Okay, so right here you can see the profile of Alan Stanford. So you can see all the information there. And then you can also see the history. So the system, we did the screening, the system did an assignment. I took it, so it says Andrew Simpson performed the assigned to me action. So I took this alert out of the queue and assigned it to myself. Then I went through and I confirmed this world check profile as the Alan Stanford that we're looking at, and it dismissed everything else. Okay, so that's showing you the full history of everything. So what I want to show you is on the connection side of things, we're now allowing you to navigate all these connections really quite easily. So for example, if you're looking at, this is all the persons that are connected to Alan Stanford, and you're seeing the icons will tell you if it's a person, if it's an entity or an organization. And then you can say, hey, who's Leroy King? And you can click on Leroy King. And when you do that, you see my breadcrumb is tracking it here. So now Leroy King becomes the center, and I can see all the people that are connected to Leroy King. And that includes, of course, Alan Stanford as well. So I can navigate around like that. So that's really a powerful feature that just persons tend to interact visually with things as opposed to looking at it in text. Another thing that we've done here is that we've introduced the map. And by doing that, we can actually now see all the different locations, which is what I showed you in the PowerPoint before. So you can navigate and see that. And then looking at the reports, you can see the sequence as well. So this is all highly interactive. You can see everything and everything works really well. In terms of the screening, one of the other things I want to show you is this one here, which is, see, I have my Google Translate all prepared and everything. And I am going to search for Leroy King, who's an associate of Alan Stanford. And I'm going to go and do the search. So I'm going to screen the entity. It's a person. Put it in. You see, that's in Russian. I do my search. And you can see, although I searched for Leroy King in Russian, it still finds the correct Leroy King, an exact match. Okay, I think that's pretty cool. And what you can do from here is that although this was pushed to a queue, you can actually go and say assign to me and take it on your own workload. But what I want to show you a few other things, and I've chosen specific persons here. So for example, this guy, Preston John, he has something that is a little bit unique in that he has specific street address. He has a specific street address or specific street addresses in Texas in the US. And with that, one of the things that we have done is that we have gone through and said, okay, we allow you to now actually get a street side view. So now you can actually go right down and get a street side view and take a look. So you can do that and say, hey, what's going on here? Where is this located? And take a closer look, right? So these are the kind of capabilities that we're trying to deliver in these releases. The other thing too we talked about were the vessel searches. So if you're looking at the vessel searches, for example, and going to assigned, I just want to go into my vessel searches here. So this is I'm searching for a vessel called Liz Star Glory. So when I search for that vessel, it gives me one prospect, the exact one. And one of the things I can actually do here, you notice the icon here is different because that's a vessel. I can confirm that this is the vessel. And if you notice now, you can see the documentation is being handled for me. So I don't have to be worrying about stuff like that. It will just happen. But when you go to the sources here, you see there's a vessel tracking link. You can actually click on that vessel tracking link and it will go and locate where exactly is this vessel today, or as recently as the information is available via the satellite. So this is September 10th at 4 p.m. and this is the exact location of the vessel at the time. So that's like pretty cool. And a lot of times persons are not aware of these really nice cool links that are available in the World Check data. So one of the things that we're trying to do is to just kind of make sure that we bring some of that stuff to life so that you can see it. So if you look at this other one, this person is involved in like human trafficking operations, but interestingly, they have like a Bureau of Prison Record. So this is their ID. And what I can actually do is that I can go to the sources and I can locate the inmate. So this is another one here. You can go here, locate that inmate. There it is. He was released, when is this, July? 7th month, yeah, January, February, yeah, July the 19th. So it was released in July the 19th. The last one I wanted to show you is also FINRA on the brokerage side. They have that link as well. And sometimes persons will say, hey, you know, do you have the FINRA list? And do you have, you know, the traders that are blocked and everything? So here, you can take a copy of that, the FINRA number, and you can go to the sources here as well and go to the broker check. And if you have the number, you can actually go in and get more details. More details. There we go. So the World Check data has a lot of this information, but in case you want to get more, you can actually go here and get more information as well. So we just want to show you that there's, you know, there's a lot of information that you can get right away, but also there's more that you can click on some of these links and navigate out of the application a little bit and get to that. So there are a few other areas that we have done a lot of work in, and that also includes like the configurability of the application. So in the application itself now, you can kind of like go in and configure how you want the searches to work, the weight that you want to put in a name, the weight that you want to put in a date of birth and stuff like that. So that's pretty mundane stuff. After I've just shown you that I can locate a vessel, I don't want to show you that. That's just in the application. I just want to mention it. So from a sanction screening standpoint, the big focus for us is how do we create this amazing experience for the investigator or the analyst? How do we create that amazing experience, making it easy, making it seamless, that you can get to do your work faster and you actually like using the UI? You know, that's kind of like what we were trying, that we focused on. I think that we have done a pretty good job with that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to Stephen, and Stephen is going to take you through visualizations, dashboards, metric sets, everything that's really pertinent to then answering the questions of what is going on with my environment and what's going on with my screening program, how are my analysts performing, and so on. So I'm just switching to Stephen, and he's going to start showing his dashboard in a second. And Stephen, over to you.
Yep, thank you, Andrew. So in my environment, Alessa environment right now, if you were in the Tuesday webinar, you may be familiar with this dashboard transaction screening, which we can come back to, and we'll go through a demo on how to explore data and bring that data into your own dashboards. But we'll start by looking at prospect screening, because all the information and the results that's generated by the screening searches, the prospects returned, the alert types, the country, and there's all the information with how that data and those results were handled. They're all captured, and we're able to visualize that in the Alessa dashboards. And then even standard users are able to consume those dashboards, drill down, and then even make edits and customize those dashboards for themselves in a way that's most meaningful to the work that they do. So in this case, we put together some mock-up data using some randomization. So in some cases, the ratio between, let's say, alerts generated and prospects might not conform with what you're used to, but it'll just do just fine for showing you how we can display the information and then drill down. So in this case, these filters at the top, you may recognize them as they're all information that's captured and displayed when we have those result sets from the screening searches. So if we were interested in finding those results prospects that belong to sanctions list, we could filter by alert type to select those that are in sanctions list. And because all of our charts are connected to these filters, those update accordingly so that we see we have 10 confirmed hits. We can make sure that those have been closed. In this case, we have 8 that are closed. So it looks like there are 2 still open. And for users that need to drill down on specific information like that, filtering on the category, and then figuring out what result sets and alerts haven't been closed, this is a very quick way to get to that information. Selecting on the filters is very simple. In this case, if we were interested, or in this case not interested, in countries like the US and Canada, because we know that disproportionately a large number of our searches will be on the clients that most often use your business, we can remove those from the selection. So then when we look at the category and the alert types, the information is more pertinent to entities that might be more at risk. So in this case, China is now more prominent as a country that's returning prospects, as well as Russia and India. If we wanted to see the inverse, each of these filters has smart auto suggestions where you can invert selection or return to the data defaults. So in this case, we have 22 confirmed hits from just the US and Canada. And on the inverse, 54. So it's an easy way to switch back and forth for comparison. If that's something you wanted to display and you wanted there to be visualized right away without filtering, going in to create that visualization is very simple by going to the Alessa designer, which we'll step into after looking at quickly 2 more dashboards. So that previous dashboard related to screening result sets, but of information is how those were handled and the users on the system, the turnaround time, and what was done with those prospects and alerts. So in this case here, we can demonstrate a dashboard that gives information about how those alerts were handled. In this case, there's still 19 open alerts that have not been closed, 91 that have been closed, and the average resolution time has been about 13-hour turnaround. We can drill down. If I go back into analyst performance, I can drill down on a single user. So if we look at Wesley So, who looks like he's been busy, we can drill down to see information for just this user. And what's nice is that if Wesley So is a user on the Alessa platform, he can save this as his own default so that when he comes into this dashboard, He's not given data about the other analysts, but just sees what's going on in his queue, as well as the alerts generated. So here we can see that alert ID 1 for Leroy King was assigned to Wesley Slow, and we can move across to see status has been assigned, as well as the resolution status still open, so that one has not been closed yet. We can filter back by all, and then as well, looking over time is very simple. We can use quick filters to select previous year, month, quarter, and returning back to the default is always just one click away. Lastly, we can go back into transaction screening, which we had looked at on Tuesday, and we can use this as an example of how to make edits to the dashboard, save it, and then deploy it so that we have either updates to an existing dashboard or we create a new one altogether. So very briefly, we looked at this one before, where this is an overview of the transactions, and this could be linked to prospects where the entity is known, and that could be added as a filter where we can see a history and a location-based data of where these entities were transacting, as well as information related to the volume, and then the status. Were those transactions successful or were they blocked? In this case, having a country filter is very handy since the US is disproportionately large and skews our data so the heat map doesn't show a nice gradation. When removing that, we can really get into and view the finer data to compare information between the different countries. So in this case, it becomes more clear that the secondary, third, and fourth largest countries in transaction are Canada, China, and Russia. For any standard user to make changes to these dashboards, if they're given permission to edit, is really as simple as going to the designer. And in this case, the designer is very much intuitive, especially if you're starting from already created dashboards. Customizing them often only includes revisualization of existing chart types and elements, so that fiddling with the data, working on ETL processes is not at all necessary in the majority of situations. So this is the transactions report. In this case, the user can come in. If they want to make an edit, they edit, and right now they've checked out this dashboard. The Alessa designer uses a version control system for tracking updates so that any changes to a dashboard by any user is stored and can be rolled back to those commits. In this case, if we wanted to look at maybe revisualization of this transaction count, if we saw, for instance, that total value and transaction count, they're quite similar. So maybe it's not necessary to have both to clean up data. We could remove those. In this case, that alert shows an example of permissions that have not been granted to this user. This metric set has been created by a different user. And because when we think about the different layers of dashboard, metric sets created by one user are shared, can be shared between different dashboards. So one user may not have the ability to edit the dashboard created by another, since they could be shared between different dashboards. So as a quick recap, if you work back from dashboards, you can think of dashboards as a combination of metric sets, where metric sets are the name of the different visualizations, data labels, tables, and charts you can show. And those charts and metric sets, they get their information from data connectors, which is where you bring in your information or is already existing. So in the case of screening reports, that information is brought in through the database connection, but you also have the ability to bring in information from Excel files, flat files, or ODBC connections. If we wanted to create a new visualization, one great way to do that is to start by just exploring data. In our data connectors dropdown, we have an example of a flat file of transactions, and either we can bring the entire thing in. Actually, we can start with that and look at a table view because there's a number of columns of what this data contains. And right from the beginning, we can edit what's being displayed, as well as the different calculations that can be done on some of the columns. I'm going to go back home though, and we're going to explore the data, and we're going to look at if we can create a new metric set and import that into a dashboard regarding the sum of transactions done by different country and their status. So if I want to start with country, because I know that's one of the categories that I want to filter on, we bring it right in, and right away we know, because it's a dimension, that it has been included in the rows. Right now, the Alessa designer by default brings our data into a visualization through a smart suggestion. At any time, we have the ability to go in and change how the data is going to look, but we'll make sure we have some data before we do that. So let's bring in the amount, where this is the sum of transactions in that category, which is branch location. We can bring this back to a table if that's how we want to view it. We can look at it as a map. We could do a bar chart. Normally, the system is fairly good at recommending something that works well. So for this, we'll stick with bar chart for now, but as we add more filters, it may be appropriate to switch to something else. So if we are worried about, if we know that the majority of these are successful transactions, but we're only interested in transactions that were unsuccessful, so those blocked or canceled, we can bring in transaction status as a filter where we see successful, blocked, and again, because so many transactions are successful, we can filter that out by selecting the filter button, value, and we only want to see those that are blocked, failed, and pending as well. All right. So now we've updated our chart, and we can see those differences between those different types of transactions, since in this case, we may not be interested as much in those successful transactions. We can revisualize as a tree map, which is similar to a pie chart, but will show differences in amounts based on size of the blocks. So in this case, we can look at the category block transactions. There are the sum of the block transactions are 1,110,000, and these are the countries they belong to. Because we are summing on an amount, we can actually go in quickly and configure the format, because we know that these aren't numerical data, but currency. So we can switch that to currency, and then even add millions and billions formatting so that large numbers are more consumable to the users. Okay, so now we have this as currency data. We've created a metric set. We'll name it, and we'll call this amount country tree map. While we're making changes, these are all automatically saved and checked in as their own metric set, which we can bring up here when we're creating dashboards. In this case, if we want this to stand on its own, we can click Add to New Dashboard, which will bring it in and let us use it right away in a dashboard that we can upload to Alessa. So we're going to keep this a very simple dashboard since the main purpose is to show how to deploy this to Alessa, we'll just have it take up the entire thing. Okay, that looks good. It was automatically saved. We'll change the name to amount country dashboard. We're going to check this in. Brought in country tree map. And this comment will allow us, if we go into the version control, to see what changes were made when. So if there's something that we wanted to go back to, a mistake we made, or an edit we wanted to make, we could go back to different versions of this single dashboard. So this is saved. And if we go back to Alessa, we can bring that in as a new dashboard that will show up on our ribbon here. So as an administrator, we can go to Configure, Visualizations, and we have Amount Country Dashboard here. We deploy, we return to Dashboards, and Dashboard Management will create a new dashboard. We'll bring that visualization in. So we'll call it Amount by Country. We can select that dashboard, we bring it in, save, and it's here for us to view. There we can see that any information in the Alessa system, whether it's screening or transactions, is captured and can be used to create different metric sets or visualizations that can be combined into dashboards. Those dashboards can be customized by the users or used to create new data and new dashboards of their own. And really, you do not need to be a BI professional. In many cases, when you're in the Alessa designer, going to edit and making changes often are accompanied by smart recommendations. So as you noticed before, when I brought in data, it recommends table, it recommends bar chart. When I want to revisualize, it's got options for me and suggestions. So let's say we did want this as a table or the entire dashboard as a map. We can make that selection here. I'll change well, we can keep that as a projection. We can check in, changed to map, and our save here will update the dashboard in Alessa. So now the amount and transaction by country is visualized as one single map where, yeah. So in this case, users are able to view the information from the screening reports in a way that makes most sense to them, in a way to drill down to connect that information from the results to something visual that helps them drill down.
Okay. Yeah, that was great, Stephen. Thank you.
All right.
So we went a little bit further in the session today just to show you end to end how does this look and how everything comes together. So let me just show you my screen again. Well, that's it from Stephen and myself. Anu, I don't know if you have any questions that you want us to address.
For sure. Yeah. So a couple of actually more than a couple, some questions have come in. So it says you're demoing WorldCheck data, but will Alessa still support other sources?
Oh yeah, I think today we do support even custom lists. So in that situation, what we have is a customer say that they have a custom list. We put it in our index in our search repository, limit it to just them. And so if they're searching for Leroy King, they would find Leroy King in WorldCheck, but they'll also find Leroy King in their data if he's in there as well, and they can decide which one they want to confirm as the hit. So yes.
So if anyone needs help with dashboards, how is that handled?
So for the customers that deal directly with us here at Caseware, they just need to reach out to tech support, and we'll look at what it is that they're trying to do. However, we will also be doing a number of online training sessions, and there is tremendous documentation that's available as well. If it is that you want to get up and running and you want to build out some new dashboards, we can help you with that. Also, we will continue to build out more and new dashboards as a standard part of the application, and those updates will be available via technical support. So yeah, those are your options. If it is that you are working with a partner, so if you are a SimTide partner, an Audicon partner, Satori customer, not partner, then contact your partner, and they have also been trained in all of this, so they'll be able to help you as well.
Okay. So I have a question from someone who thinks they're on 5.4. They're an on-premise customer, so they're inquiring, what is the upgrade path?
Oh yeah, well, for the on-premises customers, we have started doing some of those upgrades already. I think where we have some of the customers that have relatively complex on-premises deployments, those deployments have to be planned very carefully. So your partner or Caseware will be in touch with you directly to handle those upgrades with you. But there's upgrade support for every customer of the software. So
Okay.
that is available to everyone.
Okay. The next question hits on something I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, where the screening is not used just for individuals, but it's important to be used for vendors as well. So the question that's come in is, how would screening work for business entities and vendors?
Well, the vendor screening is very similar to what you would have seen before. So if you notice in the application, we say entity. So we don't say customer, we say entity. And that's because a lot of our non-financial institutions, more corporates, manufacturing, retail, those people, those customers, they have been screening vendors. So it's a different type of approach. And by the way, one of the things that we're also doing is in the next release that we're looking at in a few months, we'll be introducing something called EDD, which is enhanced due diligence, which is a deeper level of research where someone would even go physically to the supplier site or the vendor site and validate that they exist, revealing everything about the UBO, the ultimate beneficial owners, all that kind of stuff. So for vendor screening, this is step one, but in a lot of instances, persons require a deeper level of due diligence, and that is available as well.
Okay. So we have one final question, which is maybe a little unusual. So do you have anything that could be used as a GPS mileage tracker? So if you know the exact start and end destination, can you calculate the actual mileage between the two?
So we can do that through analytics.
Okay.
Right. So we're doing a lot of that stuff through analytics. We're also, like, for example, even for online banking, we're doing things like looking at the IP address and then looking at the location and calculate the distance between each transaction, the physical distance. So if someone logs on in Canada and they make a particular transaction, and then you see a log on coming up from a different IP address, and that IP address is somewhere completely different, that's thousands of miles away within the next 5 minutes. Okay, what's going on here? Not that you're saying immediately something is wrong with the transaction, but you just look at it as a higher risk transaction because the distance is such that it's not humanly possible that it's the same person.
Good. Okay, good to know. So that is it for today's questions, and I notice we're almost at the top of the hour. So before I close off the presentation, I'd like to let everyone know that we have released a new white paper called Best Practices for Sanction Screening and Watch List Filtering. You can download your copy of this 24-page document from the Insights section of our website. So on behalf of Alessa, I'd like to thank our presenters and of course our attendees for making the time for us. We hope you enjoyed the session and will join us for upcoming events. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at alessa@caseware.com, or you can browse our website at alessa.caseware.com. Thank you and have a great day.